What's up, everybody? This is Scott from MORTALITY, and I am doing, I think, version 4 of What's Spinning and part 2 of the Christian metal series that I started last week. And this time I'm going to be sticking to mostly Christian thrash, and I'm going to break my rule of only 5 CDs this one time because I just couldn't only figure out 5 thrash CDs to play because thrash is one of my favorite styles of music. So I'm going to go a few more than 5. We'll just not even say how many. Anyhow, Christian thrash metal, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to basically do them by year, oldest to newest, and wanted to give you guys a mixture of some of the older stuff from the 80s, some 90s stuff, and then some newer stuff. So it's going to be a little bit of everything. So this is What's Spinning, part 4, Christian thrash metal. Number 1, probably one of the best thrash albums ever. This is one of those ones that I just absolutely love, regardless of whether it's Christian or not. Vengeance Rising, Human Sacrifice. This is just raw, guttural thrash metal. Almost early death metal. Doesn't have the death growls, but it has these gnarly vocals. And you know, I discovered this album. I was working at a store, or not a store, I was working for a moving company in Princeton, New Jersey, and after one of my deliveries, I was on the way back and I drove by this Christian bookstore, record store, CD store, and I saw it there, so I stopped real quick on my lunch break, and I was checking out their demos. All those Christian stores always have these little demo centers where you listen to music, and I saw this cover, and I was like, whoa, gotta check that out, and I put on, and the first song, Human Sacrifice, and I was just blown away. And so I bought it. I bought the cassette, actually, and been a fan ever since. I remember listening to this over and over and over again that summer of 1988, I believe it was, in that truck, in that cassette, until I wore that cassette out. I remember thinking to myself one day while I was driving down the road, if I ever get into a metal band, it's going to be just like this. And wouldn't you know, many, many years later, I actually sang for this band for a couple years. We were under the name Once Dead, but Vengeance Rising, Human Sacrifice, just raw, guttural thrash metal, speed, gnarly vocals, and the guitar playing is fantastic. Larry Farkas is just one of the best guitar players out there. You know, I would describe this album like the first time I heard Metallica's Kill 'Em All. That album had that same raw, youthful energy. It wasn't perfect, it was just raw, fast, heavy, and that's how this album is. Vengeance Rising, Human Sacrifice, 1988. This album here was released on Intense Records. It was released a few years later, in 2010, on Intense Millennium Records with a new cover, which I thought was a bad choice. It does have the original cover on the inside, so it can be flipped. And the original orders actually came as a double CD with a bunch of demo material on this side, and had a sticker in it with the cover art, and so it was a nice package, although I just didn't like the fact that they changed the cover. And then just last year, the album was also released on picture disc vinyl once again, and here's the original vinyl back over here. So in the picture disc was released on Rox Records. I'll try not to talk that long about every one of these records, or I'll be forever. 1989, Thresher, Totally Possessed. Now this album originally only came out on cassette tape. Never was released on vinyl that I know of, never was released on CD. This is a Pennsylvania band, kind of mid-paced most of the time, but it has this real intricate guitar work, kind of the raw, gruff vocals, but not deathy, just thrashy. And this album was released on CD in 2009 on Rox Records. They released a second album called Here I Am, that they actually recorded this album after that first album and never was released, but in 2009 Rox released it, and the first 100 pre-orders only received Totally Possessed on CD. So this CD is ultra rare. It's almost impossible to find, as is the cassette. So unfortunately this one is a bit hard to find, even though it's one of the ones I highly recommend. Thresher is totally possessed. You can still get Thresher Here I Am on Rock's Records. It's also a good album. Kind of that mid-pace, lots of groove, great guitar work, great vocals. Number 3, 1989, Believer, Extraction from Mortality. Fast, technical. This band is just fantastic. Probably one of the more known Christian thrash bands out there. This album was released on Rex Records. They were eventually picked up by, I can't remember if it was a Nuclear Blast or one of those records. It was Roadrunner. I think it was Roadrunner or Road Racer. And their second and third albums were released on Road Racer. And then their newer albums have been released on Metal Blade Records. But this is their first album. Rex Records, just pure thrash metal. Again, almost Slayer-ish, but very thoughtful, intelligent lyrics. Not pushy, not silly. And a great album cover to boot. The Crucified, self-titled album. This was their first full-length album after releasing several punk albums. Now, the Crucified are more of a crossover band than straightforward thrash. They got that punk edge to their sound, and they definitely, in the vocals of Mark Solomon, have that punk shout. This album was originally released on Narrow Path and Pure Metal. It has been re-released several times, and was recently re-released on vinyl once again, which is right behind me here. Again, it's got that kind of crossover sound, kind of, I don't know, now I can't even think of who else they sound like. It just has that punk edge, as opposed to, most of the metal bands have the more precise guitar player, and they have a more of a punk delivery. Again, 1989, Sacrament, Testimony of the Apocalypse. Again, another Rex release. Almost death metal-ish in the vocal style, not growled, but growly. Somewhere between like a James Hetfield and Chuck from Death, somewhere in between the two of those. Fantastic vocals. There's a song here called Conquer Death, one of my favorite thrash songs ever. Great guitar work. This band also, like Thresher, is from Pennsylvania. This album too was re-released. Can't remember what year it was released. This is the re-release here. You can see it. I believe it was 2005. Yeah, 2005 on Retroactive Records. And I believe Retroactive is going to be releasing this album again this year, remastered. And I heard some of the tracks that were remastered, and they sound fantastic. So pick that one up if you can get it. Sacrament, Testimony of the Apocalypse. Still in 1989, I believe. No, 1990. This will be 1990. Seventh Angel of Torment. English thrash metal band. Now this band has a more unique sound, and as they developed and they got moved on, their next album had a little more doom mixed in, which doom and thrash seem like the polar opposites of each other, but they made it work. This album though is pure thrash. Songs like Dr. Hatchet and what's the other song I'm thinking of? There's several songs in here that just pure speed, great riffing, great guitars, awesome guitar solos. You can't have a good thrash band without guitar solos. And the artwork is Rodney Matthews, who has done some artwork for bands like Asia and Nazareth and Detritus. He's done tons of artwork, but this album is fantastic. It's an illustration on the Book of Revelation. Seventh Angel, Torment. The album is playing in the background. 1990. Tourniquet, Stop the Bleeding, originally released on Intense Records. This band was also picked up by Metal Blade. This album it's thrash, but it also has a lot of classic metal, King Diamond-ish vocals at times. And other points are like what you can hear in the background, where it's just kind of the shouted thrash vocals, but other times the singing is high-pitched and King Diamond-ish. Probably my favorite Tourniquet release right here. Their next album, probably pretty darn close, Psychosurgery, but this is probably my favorite one. Picked this one up at another Christian bookstore and went in looking for music, and the guy behind the counter suggested it. I grabbed it, put it in the that little demo bin, listened to it, bought it, and been a huge Tourniquet fan ever since. This one has been released several times, although the re-release has a slightly different cover, a little bloodier, same snake in a tourniquet on the front cover. This was actually re-released by the band in 2001. This was released by them, remastered, bonus tracks, booklet with lots of pictures to look at and things to read while you're listening to the music. Tourniquet, Stop the Bleeding, 1990. This one too was re-released on vinyl. I thought I had it up there. There it is, right there. It's on a colored vinyl, actually. I believe it's red. Next one I've showed in videos before, but I'm going to show it again because I love this band. This is the original cassette release, the MOSHKTEERS, The Downward Spiral, a band out of Albuquerque, New Mexico. This band was originally called Rapture, released several demos under that name, under Rapture, and changed their name to the MOSHKTEERS in, I believe it was end of 1989, 1990, somewhere around that. They went from being a power metal band to a thrash band. They changed their name to go along with it. They were kind of trying to, use the fun, almost joking thing with the MOSHKTEERS name, and I thought it worked. I love this band. Matter of fact, my band Ultimatum recorded a cover of one of the songs off this album called Locked in Chains, and the song did really well, and the record company, Roxx Records, I played that album for him after our song did pretty well for us, and he loved it. So the album was finally released on CD back in 2009, I think 2009, 2010, but with a proper cover and a proper release and proper mastering. MOSHKTEERS, Downward Spiral, bunch of bonus tracks. If you got one of the original 100, it came with a second CD of the Vacation from Hell demo. And this one has to be autographed by Alan Tuma, who was a drummer for MOSHKTEERS for many years, and he also played in Ultimatum for many years. Played on our Into the Pit album, Lex Metalis, on our Heart of Metal CD. So, highly recommended. I've given this away to a lot of people because it's just one of my favorite albums of all times, and I'm always trying to turn people onto it. So, the MOSHKTEERS, Downward Spiral, originally recorded 89, 90, released in 1991 originally, on cassette only. Now we're getting later into the 90s. 1995, Possession, Eternally Haunt. Sort of on Metal Merchant Records. I think it was Metal Merchant. But it doesn't really matter because the band ended up releasing it independently after a disagreement with the record company. This album is just sick, haunting. Again, it has this real high-pitched King Diamond-ish vocals at times, and other times they're real screechy and almost black metal-ish. Not black metal. Black metal makes him almost sound something different. It's hard to explain. He's just got a very unique vocal style. There it is. But the music's fast, chaotic, very dark, and the themes are very dark with it. But of course, being a Christian band, there's a message of hope at the end. They deal a lot with the occult and the consequences of the occult. Some of these band members ended up forming a black metal band later on called Frost Like Ashes, which I also have some stuff by. Next band is, I forgot the year now, 2008, I think. Temple of Blood, Overlord. This is their second release. This is very technical thrash. These guys could compete with anybody. The guitar player and vocalist Jim Mullins, I believe is his name. Fantastic guitar player. Very odd vocals, very charismatic vocals, very different, which is what I like about him. Unfortunately, the one negative point of this CD is that the vocals are a little low in the mix, but the music is fantastic. It's easily overlooked. Unfortunately, this CD is hard to find nowadays. It's out of print. It needs to be remastered, re-released. And if you're watching this, remaster this and re-release it. And this album happens to also have the song that is on the opening credits of this album. It's the last song on here, which I think is called The Return. And I don't have my glasses on. I can't see it. Sucks getting old. Temple of Blood, Overlord, 2008, hopefully. Now we're getting into newer stuff. This one is a brand from Brazil, Disaffection, Begin the Revolution. This is new wave of thrash metal right here. This is Exodus style thrash, down-picked, fast, headbanging thrash metal, speed metal. If you like Exodus or Old Testament or just any of that Bay Area style, this is what this sounds like. But these guys are from Brazil. This album was released on Retroactive Records in 2010. It's still available, still easy to get. You can get it on Amazon, eBay, or directly through record company. Disaffection, Begin the Revolution. And this will be the last one for this edition of What's Spinning. It's this was the most recent release. It's 2013, released on Roxx Records as well. Originally released, I believe, in 2012 as maybe a digital-only album, but this is an Italian band, think it's right. Hopefully it's Italian. Mortars, Our Existence. This band has been around for a long time, but this is, I believe, is only their second full-length release. Their first release came out on Retroactive Records a few years ago. It's more thrashy than this one, very Megadeth influence. This one's got some different styles, you know, ranging from the new wave of British heavy metal sound to speed metal to thrash. It even has a ballad on it that's very dark and gloomy, almost Judas Priest-like, Beyond the Realms of Death kind of. And this album was re-released on, or I guess released for the first time on Rox Records in 2010. And like a lot of Rox releases, if you pre-order it, the first 100 came with a bonus CD, which this one does have, of their very first demo. And but regardless if it has the bonus disc or not, well worth picking up. You can pick it up through Rox Records. You can pick it up on Amazon. Italian speed metal, thrash metal, and Christian thrash metal. So that's it for this edition of What's Spinning. Tried to get through them as quickly as I could and not speak too much, so hopefully this isn't too long. But appreciate you all watching. Big shout out to all my friends on the VC. And that's it for this edition. God bless and stay strong.